There is no safe space for straight men. Hey, it's Prince of Queens, and I had a moment of clarity around what it must be like to be a straight male. Honestly, from my interactions with straight men over the course of my life, it does seem to be the case that there's an argument to be made that they have a rougher existence than almost anybody. I'm not saying that straight men are the real oppressed people or something, and that straight men are constantly discriminated against, although they often are on a systemic level, especially in family court, domestic violence legalities, and on university campuses. Still, I don't like trying to quantify the world in terms of the privileged and the oppressed, as that is not my worldview. What I will say is this: there are no safe spaces for straight men. There never will be. They don't really want them, and other people probably wouldn't let them have them if they tried to make them. But let me back up a bit. What is a safe space anyway? Well, I've heard two main versions of this. Apparently, once upon a time, safe spaces were a therapeutic device where groups would get together and talk about their feelings openly, making mini I statements. People would talk about their feelings without the fear of ridicule, and it probably sometimes went well and probably sometimes was full of passive aggressive attacks masked as I statements. People were really insulting each other by saying, "Well, I feel like your feelings are annoying," or something. But that's just what I imagine. I was never in one, but I've known a lot of people that are like that. Regardless, these days we have the safe spaces that are on university campuses, in feminist groups, and with the LGBTQIA community, which I have actually made an entire video about. In the video, I argue that these spaces are not really safe at all. Long story short, today's safe spaces are full of drama and an inverted reality where the otherwise most easily offended and emotionally weakest people in the group are given free rein to bully people based on their immutable traits. Actually, it's not even necessarily that these people are emotionally weak, though they usually are, but rather the people with the most easily calculated oppression points are given the authority to basically make the rules of social etiquette. And if you don't like that, you'd probably be best to leave. Generally, these spaces are dominated by cisgender women and trans people, with a few gay guys that other gay guys probably tend not to get along with. It's not so much about the space being safe that brings these people together. Safe is really just code word for we make the rules here. And by we, they basically mean anybody who isn't a cisgender man with a spine. And what is their justification for forming their safe spaces? Well, according to them, cisgender straight men, especially, otherwise known as the patriarchy, make all of the rules everybody everywhere else in society. And of course, these people would probably openly tell you everywhere is a safe space for cisgender straight men. But I honestly think that anybody who says that is delusional. I think that nowhere is a safe space for straight men. Here's the thing. It's not just that straight men simply don't wake up every day in a magical fantasy universe where everything is to their liking, filled to the brim with entitlements, blah, 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 like feminists basically claim that it is. It's not just basically the reverse of what actually seems to be true that feminists are describing when I examine heterosexual relationships from the outside, where females tend to be the ones that are getting mostly what they want in terms of entitlements. But more so, it seems to me that if straight men ever complain about their existence long enough for them to find maybe a safe space or whatever about their own feelings, If they did that, the first people to get mad at them would be women, and in particular, feminists. And this actually happens. Feminists literally do shut down men's groups all the time. You see, straight men in general carry the hardest burden in our society. They do the hardest jobs, and there's not a single person who you can point to who isn't delusional that would deny that. They do the firefighting work, repair the power cables, fix the sewers, fight the wars, and put in 80-hour weeks in white-collar employment positions to make money so that their wives can spend their money and so their kids can go to nice schools. Now, granted, I'm not saying that the wives are just using the men, at least in a functional family relationship, because ideally the wife is doing lots of work that makes her husband and kids happy and grateful to be a family together. However, what I will say is that straight men learn from a very early age that they will never really be given the opportunity to complain about any of this. They see how far it gets them when their dad gets drunk and yells, "Give me a break! You have a roof over your head because of me!" And mom gives him the silent treatment for a day. Traditionalists would probably be the first to tell you all of this, and they were saying this stuff like in the 1950s, undoubtedly. And then feminists claim in a response that it wasn't really that men can't complain because it makes women unhappy, but rather it's that straight men aren't allowed to show their feelings because of patriarchy, blah, 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 blah. I don't think that that's true. Straight men never made a rule against showing emotions, and they don't enforce it subconsciously. Straight men are totally allowed to show their feelings, but the problem is that women, and especially feminists, only seem to be okay with straight men complaining about other men, or at least people that the woman cannot identify with. If a man or even a woman at work gives a wife's husband a hard time, his wife can maybe offer condolences, though he'd probably be best not to complain about coworkers on a first date. But more so, even if the guy is married, if a friend of his wife, that's a female, or her sister, or her mother, or his wife herself, gives him a hard time and hurts his feelings, he better be careful in talking about it to his wife. Not because of what men will say, but because of what his wife will say or do. She will not tolerate any of his whining. I think I can say it somewhat simply. If straight men were to show their feelings regarding all of the ways that women drive them crazy, there wouldn't be any women alive that would go near them. So they actively train themselves to keep it bottled in because they want women in their lives. And thus, that is the life of the straight man. All of this is somewhat obvious to anybody that has paid any sincere attention to the men's movement in any way. I've never actually read the book, The Myth of Male Power, but I have heard Warren Farrell speak a lot about these types of dynamics. And taken to their full conclusion, many guys go MGTOW. But I personally think that most guys are okay with a society that does cater to female emotional comfort, just so long as they get laid and cleaned up after. Still, one thing that I have noticed that I think I can bring to this discussion uniquely as a gay man is the ways in which straight men behave when they are around other straight men and maybe the stray gay man like myself, and how and why they don't form quote unquote safe spaces when they're alone together. You see, straight men, from my observation, don't want to form safe spaces because they don't need any help being emotionally vulnerable. It's not going to get them ahead in their careers, and it certainly won't get them any girls. And that's imposed by the girls and the meritocratic nature of the careers that these guys will be entering. They're not going to be feminist dance therapists. They're probably going to try to do something that straight guys tend to do. So, What do they do instead of talking about their feelings? Well, they tend to refine their various skills in terms of competitive activities. Some guys play video games, some guys play sports, some guys play poker, and all of that competition is undoubtedly something that goes back to primal psychology. And they also have a habit of fine tuning their wit by making fun of each other. It's not a safe space. They cut each other down. It's part of how straight guys interact. Seriously, hang out with any group of straight guys, and the vast majority of them make fun of each other constantly. Gay guys do this too, to a certain degree, but guys in general poke fun at each other to toughen each other up in a world where they need to be tough. While it's true that guys tend to be somewhat in tune with knowing which things other guys don't like being made fun of about, sometimes even still, they will test the limits and make fun of their short friend for being short, even though they know it really bugs him. Why do they do this? They are training each other to handle the harsh world, which is honestly probably harshest for them, the straight guys, for the reasons I already explained. This is the life they have. They have the often thankless role of the straight man, who is lucky if he finds a semi-nice wife with kids who aren't disabled. There is no purpose in complaining for a straight guy. And if he does go to a men's group and it's a real men's group, it's probably not going to be focused all that much on his feelings, because that was probably never the main issue. Chances are, if a straight guy is driven to seeking out a men's group in the current year, it's not going to be a safe space, but a place to get legal advice. That's all I have to say for this video. Stay tuned.